What's up, everybody? It's your girl Sequoia Blue back in here for another episode. And we have a special guest today. We have Damian White, and he's going to tell us about his intriguing poetry book and his story. And we are excited to hear his story. What's going on, Damian?
What's going on? I'm super happy to be here.
Yes, I'm happy that you on the podcast, the Alchemy podcast. So first, before we start the questions, I want to start doing a quote now because I love quotes. Anybody knows me, I'm a quote lady. So the quote for today is, "I don't want anything, a day, a month, a season before it's time." And this is by Elaine Welteroth. So I really love that quote because sometimes we all want something right now and maybe it's not the right time for it. So that's why I had to put that quote out there. Um,
That's
so
fire.
Damien, let's start with the first question. What does your book title, "I Made a Place for You," mean?
Sure. So the title came from me trying to find a place to put questions, curiosities I had for like a long time, and some of and like answer some of the questions I had from my experiences being homeless. And I didn't know like where I could go, like who I could talk to. So some of the things that like I went through were could be considered embarrassing or shameful or you know um out of the ordinary. And so like I was also protecting myself from like just trying to find a person that was going to be like my outlet and like allow me to talk. And so I turned back to writing as a place to put those kind of like questions and like thoughts I needed to like tease apart. So the title "I Made a Place for You" came from me literally making a place to talk about and discover aspects of myself that like I didn't have an outlet to do otherwise.
Wow, that is amazing. So I saw in your biography that you were homeless at one time. Like, what did you learn from that experience, and did you meet anyone else around that was homeless, and like what did you learn about that from that experience?
Yeah, I think that humility was just a big part of it. The main thing I would say I learned was just that like you have to really recognize like you have to figure out who you are everywhere you go. So I feel like sometimes we walk around with like a salient identity in a sense where it's like I feel like the man, right? So wherever I go, I'm gonna feel like the man. But sometimes when you're in a situation where like the what makes the guy the man isn't the same thing that makes you the man in the other situation, right?
Mm,
So we could think about this like with like gang culture, for instance, or jail culture, which the unfortunately our community is disproportionately involved in those, right? And
mhm.
so, but like if you walk into like a certain neighborhood in a certain place where like a certain gang or a certain whatever, then like you have to know who the guy is. You have to know how to move
Mm,
around that person. You have to know how to talk around that
mm.
person. And I feel like in a sense, like being homeless, you're forced to do the same thing because you don't really know like who has what to live for anymore. You don't really
Yeah.
know you don't really know like who's like it's their last day where they just decided like whatever happens today. I don't care if I go to jail. I don't care if I die. Like you don't know who woke up like that. And so like you have to kind of
Wow.
like you have to approach people differently. And I wanted to carry that into my life now that I'm back working and like all of that too. So instead of like making assumptions about people, actually like realizing you don't know like what this person's going through. You don't know like
Mm-mm.
what their what buttons they don't want pressed today or like what their limits are or their boundaries are. And so like you have to like meet people where they are all the time. And I would say that's the most valuable lesson I learned from being homeless.
That's a good lesson to learn because you do not know people's stories. And a lot of people, some people are empathetic. Like,
Right.
I'm empathetic. I can put myself in someone's shoes, even though I've never been in that situation. But a lot of people, they just can't do that. So at times it's like, I'm gonna judge you because you doing this, and I'm assume you on this on drugs or something because you're homeless or whatever. And it's like, no, he might have been a doctor and just got caught up in a hard time. And I always think about stuff like that, especially when I was in LA and I used to drive by Skid Row. I'm like, I
Yeah.
really don't know their story, but they all had a story, and I just it's just very you said, humbling and a great. It's just a learning experience, and it's a part of your journey. So
Like
that's always.
I was in San Francisco for part of that time, and so like it was weird to me because I had seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness like I don't know a couple times,
Oh,
but
I
like
love that movie.
after being there and coming home, I ended up watching the movie again some random day, and I realized that like Will Smith was eating at the same homeless shelter in that movie that I was eating at while I was living there. called Glide. Yeah, the
Wow.
place was called Glide. So like I was watching the movie again and I was realizing that the same places that he was going to get like assistance and services, like I also was going to those places. And I never knew that like before. It just like I saw him walk into the homeless shelter and get food with his kid in the movie and I was like, wait a minute, like I sat in that room, like
Dang, that
every
is
day for 2
deep.
months. Yeah.
Wow. And in your poetry book, did you write your experiences, to like just release that story, that trauma, or that just like I guess this could be kind of cathartic in a way?
For sure. I wouldn't say that like I wrote my story in this book. I would say that I really made it so like the I hope that when people read the book, they have more questions than answers, right? So
Yeah,
like for me, this was like these are thoughts and like the feelings and the type and the motifs and themes of the book. They were like things that I was thinking about for a long time. So like I'm not claiming to have the answers to those things. It's just my
yeah,
way of presenting them to other people and like for myself that in a way that like does feel healing and does feel positive and does feel like a way to talk about topics. Like I always give the same example because it fits, but like who goes to brunch and asks their friends like, what do y'all think purgatory is like? Y'all think purgatory is lit? Like you think what happens in
mm,
purgatory? No one's ever done that. I've never been at brunch and anyone asked me like, what do you think happens if you're in purgatory? Right? Never. And
mm,
so like
yeah,
if that's something that I'm sitting here thinking about one day just because you're like, you could trace the line of thoughts like, hey, like what if I don't go to heaven? Or what if maybe I'm
mm,
misguided and maybe what if they do have to judge me and you like start going down there, you're like, okay, well if that happens and like what if purgatory is a real place and I do go there? Like, what would it be like?
mm.
Right. And so like those are things that like lines of thinking I would be thinking because like I was feeling near death for a long time. I was feeling
Wow.
on the brink of like this could be it pretty soon. And so like those are the kinds of questions that arose during that time. And this book was me putting those questions places in an artistic way that I felt proud of, I feel.
I love it. And one of the questions I had because I was reading your biography, you mentioned that you had to reform a relationship with God, like because you were probably at a point where it's like, well, what does God want? Why is God putting me through this? And you were probably going through a battle with God. What was your change to spirituality now? Like, how do you feel about it now versus then?
Yeah, I think before I was more rebellious in the sense that I felt like I was making the chess pieces move. Right?
Hmm.
So I think that like going through that experience in San Francisco, I realized the world around me, so much stuff was happening without my hands being the reason why those things were happening. That like you have to ask yourself the question, like, okay, well, if it's not me, then who is it? And like that road ends in God typically for most people. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
especially if you were born, I was baptized at 12, no, 11, and like I went to Catholic school. I was raised in a Baptist church, but I went to Catholic high school, then Presbyterian college. So like I've always been super interested in religion, but for me personally, I think that I was more like interested in the school part of it and like the
Mm.
theories and the doctrines and the different ways of people like practicing
Yeah.
and thinking versus so much like the lifestyle, like living according to any particular religion. And so like, but after that, I think that I accepted that there's no way it's all me. And so like I
Mhm.
have to open up space to be able to say like, okay, like if it's not me, then I need to be talking to God and in communication with God because I need to be like walking the right path now. And obviously like I wasn't able to do that when I thought that I was the architect of my steps.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Wow, that's deep. At least you became aware. Like a lot of
Right.
people can live their whole life and not be aware because there is a higher power, whatever anybody believe in. And when you had spoke to God, when you started speaking to God, did you feel like the answers came in a small voice in your head, or was it like a random person giving you an answer?
No, I think it happens in mysterious ways, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I meditate, so I meditate every day, twice a day.
Okay.
And so like I'm also it's just a spiritual person that's also cares about nature and like I would say there are multiple facets to my spirituality.
Hmm.
And so like for me, like when I'm still and calm and my thoughts are quieted and I'm sitting in silence, like there those voices that you hear and those fits of inspiration, like I don't know how else like there would be no other way for me to say that wasn't God right now. There's
Yeah.
no, I don't, at this point in my life, I would have to say that those thoughts come from some type of divine inspiration, because like before I was just like letting my monkey brain go. And it's just like, you have all the thoughts you have and you think you can figure it all out. And like A goes to B and B goes to C, C goes to D, and D ends up in I'm a superstar. Right. Like you think that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like when you get rid of all of that kind of like pressure you're putting on yourself to make all that stuff happen, I think that like you do start to hear the voice and like hear it more clearly. And like you're not going to ignore those instructions. You're going to say, no, this is saving me from having to figure it out. This
Mhm.
little voice I hear is saving me from having to like put all my thoughts together and like figure out what to do. Like, you know what to do. Like your
Yep.
thoughts said, do podcasts this morning. That's what it said. It said, wake up, schedule some podcasts, do some podcasts, because you need to keep getting the word out about your book. It didn't say like complain about that. It didn't say complain because you're on vacation, you know? So
Yeah.
I have to like, I give precedent to those like moments where I do feel like I've received a clear thought.
Oh, wow, I love that. That's basically how I would describe it in my
Yeah.
spiritual journey is I just something tells me, okay, have this time open to schedule this time, because I have to talk to this person and I can feel people's energies just through them writing me. And it's a
Right.
deep thing. Is when you get high up in that spiritual realm, you just start tapping in. You be like, dang, okay, I know this person's coming on. I know this person probably won't come on today. It's like you just notice
Yeah.
things and I could feel your energy. I said, I'm definitely gonna be chatting with Damien at 10
Yeah.
a.m.
And I think also the other thing I would say too is that like I stopped being so reluctant to want to be places with people. Like I was very anti for a while. Like people
Mm.
invite me to stuff and I'm like, nah, I'm not going. I don't want to go. I'm just like, I'd
Ah.
rather be at home. Like it's not gonna be fun. Or you tell yourself whatever you tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself, you know. But for me now
Yeah.
it's like I believe that you're put in rooms with people for reasons. And so like if I'm supposed to be somewhere, then like who am I to decide that I'm not supposed to be there?
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. Because sometimes it's like the ego gets in charge of and I call the ego edging God out, right? Because it's
nice.
like at the end of the day, it's like, why are you in the ego mode? Now, if you get a real intuition telling you not to go, because there's times I just didn't
Right.
do it. But like most of the time, if you sit here and you go within, you know what you're supposed to be doing. If once you learn how to tap in, everybody it has their own journey, but it seems like you already know how to tap in, which is really good. Now, when you started writing your book, like how did you I guess your process for writing a book? Because a lot of people out here that's like, I want to write a book, but I don't know how to start. Like, what do I do? And it's like, what was your journey to figuring out how to write a book for a first time author?
For sure. So I've been writing for a long time. Just never put pen to paper to like write the book project.
Mm.
I wrote everything on paper first, and I had a process where like I was like, I'm not editing none of this. I'm not editing anything until like I have all the poems I'm going to write, because like we're often our biggest critics. So for me, like if I start editing a piece, I'm like already saying it's not good enough. And I'm not able to look at it in like a body of work to see like what it contributes to something. It's like you're looking at this one thing you just wrote and then you're criticizing it immediately. So for me, I'll write and then like leave it alone until like I'm at the editing phase. So when I got to the
Mhm.
editing phase, then it's like now is when you start to like cut down and whittle away at all the unnecessary language and like bring your voice into focus and like make sure that I was delivering the messages the way that I wanted to. So it took probably like a year and a half for me to like write the full book, have the illustrations like worked out with the illustrator, because it's
Mhm.
an illustrated collection. So each poem has an accompanying illustration.
Oh man,
That
I
was
can't
like,
wait to get your book. I'm definitely gonna buy
yeah.
it.
So this is I have it here, but like this is the cover, and my
Wow,
friend Francesco illustrated, and like inside there's like there are pictures on for each poem too. So
this is amazing.
yeah, so it's really cool. And for me, like I was saying, like I haven't. This is kind of embarrassing, but it's the truth. I
It's
hadn't really
okay.
read a book cover to cover myself outside of school for like
Mm.
years, because
Mm.
I'm also like tapped into social media and also tapped into like instant gratification, and I'm also victim to some of those things. So like for me it's
Yeah.
much easier to go like watch a YouTube video than to like read the book or like listen to an audio book versus actually read the book, you know. I'm like, let's
Yeah, yeah.
take me 10 hours to read this, or I can listen to the audiobook in 2 hours, and if I miss
That's
something
true.
I can play it again 5 times in the same amount of
Yeah.
time. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So like
that makes sense.
for me that method works the best. So that's why there are illustrations too, but keep my attention. right? So like,
Yeah, yeah, that would keep my attention too. Like, I think
yeah,
that's a really good idea. Because in the way the illustration is, it's amazing. Like, it's just got a good vibe to it. I mean, and your book is on Amazon and also on your website and
and Barnes and
um,
Noble, basically
wow.
everywhere that online books are sold. I distribute it through a press, so I have like global distribution, so it's all the channels and all the places it should be. Hopefully, if not, I gotta call them.
Yeah, make sure it's on Walmart online too, because
Right?
that's a good spot. Um, And what keeps you motivated and positive? What keeps you going during this tough time? Because it's a lot going on with, well, if if you're looking at keeping up with news and stuff, and it's not even just about the actual facts that's going on, but just knowing what's going on, being aware, culture, social media, all these things. What's keeping you motivated?
Yeah, I think that being a content creator and someone that's a creative, I write, I make music. I just put out a music video November 1st, which was cool too.
Oh,
Oh no, sorry, November 25th. The book came out the first. I put them both out in the same month. For me, being a creative like allows me to stay motivated because there's always something to do, and
it
like
is.
there's if you're a person that's really tapped in, like you say, right, then you know that that inspiration is going to come to you, and if you're the responsible creative, you're going to go spend time and do something with it. And so, like
Mm,
for me, getting like ideas out of my head and making them become real is the most motivating thing for me. I just
mm,
love taking an idea and seeing it in real life. So
I
I
love
think that
it.
like once I do one thing, now I feel like before I was more like waiting on stuff to happen. Like, oh, I put my
Mm.
book out now. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, is Oprah gonna call me?
I know,
You know,
right?
like, is Ellen
That
gonna
was
call me?
me.
You know what I mean? Like, that was is Ellen looking like maybe Kevin Hart's gonna retweet it? Like, you're like thinking all
You're
these
really
like
thinking that.
you're
Yeah, I
really
believe
thinking
that.
that, and like
'Cause I was
you
the same way. I put my first book out at 20 years old, and
right,
and that's because I couldn't afford to go to a studio. I was a music artist first, but then I was working at the airport at the time, and I saw this very elegant looking woman, and at the time she was probably like my age now, but I thought she was so gorgeous, and I created this lifestyle around her. I said she's probably some lawyer with a Gucci bag, and she just got
right,
this great husband and this great life, and I created this book about it, and you know, I put it on Amazon, and I got all these people saying, "Oh, you got all these editing issues and all this stuff," and I didn't understand. I was like,
right.
"Wait, I just put out a book. I didn't know I had to be a perfect editor. I thought it was eligible because I mean, it was eligible, but some people are very particular. They cannot see anything wrong. They can't. The comma got to be here and there. So
Yeah.
I think, and at the time, I was like, I'm about to be on Oprah. Oprah gonna call me up. We gonna talk, and I'm gonna tell my story, and then I can get my own recording studio. Yeah. No,
Yep.
it just didn't happen that way. And I got attention, but just not the right attention. I had learned a valuable lesson is that sometimes it's okay to wait for the right time. Like I
Right.
should have, because sometimes you gotta wait and find the right editor for certain things. If you're not a good editor or whatever the case is, sometimes timing means a lot. And so yeah, that story just made sense.
I mean,
And
everybody's favorite writer, author, actor, like songwriter has editors. You know what I mean? Like everyone, you
yeah,
like. And so I feel like there's a certain level that you get to when you're considering yourself a professional artist or creative, where you would be silly to not want a second set of eyes on something at a certain point because
yes,
you're so close to it. And I feel like for me, like I had a great editor at the press, but I mean, I also presented them a book that I had edited a million times and like was already finished in my opinion. And so like at
mm,
that point, I was already confident and wanted another even higher level set of eyes on my project. And it was super beneficial. And that's the only way that I feel like I was able to crack kind of through like the am I really an author like question. Am I
yeah,
really like because for me, I didn't think I could put out my book as a self-published book simply because of the illustrations. I didn't have the formatting experience or the
yeah,
technical
that,
know-how to put that together. So for me, I had no like to me, I never made it an option. I just knew I was going to have to work with someone who could help me put my book out professionally because at the end of the day, it's like all your time, effort, work that you put into this project, and it's a shame sometimes if you save $5, but you now we're looking at something you're not proud of. Or you were 20, so
yeah, yeah.
you would have known that then, but now I'm sure you'd be like, well,
Now all my books that came out after that are edited, no problems,
exactly.
no bad reviews now.
Right.
Like I learned, and I got that first book revised,
Right.
so I got it redone because the story itself was. And that's the thing. Sometimes we just got to say, hey, just get it revised if you put something out that wasn't right, and that's that. Just don't get, don't not put the story out there, because art is subjective. So just
Right.
because one, person don't like the book doesn't mean that a million other people won't like the book. And the same thing with music, and I had to learn that. It took me a minute, you know because like there's certain genres I'm not into, but at the
Right.
same time somebody is. They're making a lot, and I never was a judgment person, because I'm an artist from the boon to the coon. I've been an artist since I was 10, before I got into anything else. So
Yeah.
I never judge any type. I'd be like, I won't put this on my playlist, but this is the bomb though. This is still an artist here. This person is a work of art,
Yeah. Yeah. I think
So
also it helps to not think that whatever you just finished is going to be your last best thing. Like every time I
yeah,
finish a
yeah,
song or I finish a poem, I got rid of the idea that like I'll never write anything this good or this is the best one I'm ever going to make, so I have to be super protective of it. It's like for me, I believe that I'm going to continue to make better stuff no matter how great I feel something is right now. I should believe that like I'm going to make even better stuff.
yeah. Because you get it's like you get greater over time. Like there's just more different. You learn about different experiences. You learn more technology. Things change. Like especially as a music artist, like I mean, for me, like not being an independent artist, me just I can just do what I want to do. And it's like, it's kind of dangerous, but it's spicy, because then I can try different genres. I can mix funk with soul. I can mix rock with
Mhm.
soul, and I don't have to be stuck anywhere. And that's what, because I'm a nicheless type person. That's why my podcast is nicheless.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that music is like a baby to me. So it's like one of those things I have to be able to do kind of what I want, but I will be open to opinions too. But I don't want to change the direction. I
Right.
still want to keep that mix of genre, because a lot of things that were created was probably never created before. You want to create new things. A music artist and an author should be innovative, changing the whole frame of how it's always been, and I think that's always good.
Yeah, and you should make
Um,
stuff that you like. You should make
yeah.
things that you like, and I tell everybody that comes around me, I'm like, I don't know if you expected me to care if you like my work, right? But I
Mm,
don't. I care that the thing the pride moment for me was when I saw it in my hands. Like that was
mm,
the affirmation and then the gratitude and that was the moment. So like everything after that is either a bonus or nothing at all to me because I've already satisfied that feeling I needed from when I actually saw it real in real life. So to me, it's like you invite people. You should. I'd switch my mindset to say I'm inviting people to participate in my creativity with me. I'm not concerned with whether or not I'm the most widely regarded yada 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 out here. You know what I mean? Like
yes,
I want to
yes,
invite people, and if you rock with it, you rock with it. If you like the poetry but don't like the music, that's cool. Then buy the book. If you don't like, I'm not trying to make it so that like I package myself to be like this perfect cookie cutter version of. I did that for so long.
yeah.
That's part of what pushed you to your breaking point
Hmm.
because you're faking it for so long, and like you realize like fake it till you make it, not a real thing. You're not gonna make it. Can't
Yeah,
be
you're
fake.
not.
Can't be fake that long.
You can't, because I mean, when I was young, I read Russell Simmons' book "Do You," and he was saying that some of your most famous artists are in the house crying because they're not doing what they want to do. So they're in a mansion crying. And I said, well, I don't want to. I never want to be someone that's wealthy and then I'm crying in the corner because I'm not even singing the way I want or rapping the way
Right.
whatever. Like that's. I just rather live my life authentic, and I think this is one. If anybody out here listen, be authentic, be yourself, and know that this is your party. You inviting them to the party. They can come
Right.
or not, but put your art out. Life is short. With everything going on right now, it is short. And man,
You're like, they got me out here
great
singing
art.
these Sesame Street songs. I'm trying to be on my Nina Simone.
I know you just said Nina Simone. You must have looked me up now.
Hey, no, I mean, I get the vibe though. I mean, it makes sense. It would only make sense.
That is my style of music. I'm gonna tell
Yeah,
you that. And are you a singer or rapper?
I'm a rapper.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I gotta check out your raps, because maybe we can
for
do a
sure.
song together.
Absolutely. I just put out a video. Yeah, so check it out if you like it. I have more
I will
stuff
check it
coming too.
out. Yeah, I subscribe to all the artists that I speak to on here. I always support them and try to share it. I share it on my Twitter. I try to support, because I know how it is. And it's
Yeah,
like, as artists, it's a lot of marketing money to, you can do it. I just learned marketing. I just learned Facebook ads. I just learned all these things. So now I know how to do it, you know, and, but at times it's expensive. So a lot of times you need somebody to just reshare, reshare, reshare. So I try to reshare as many artists as I can. So
yeah.
I got your back on
No, I
that one.
appreciate that for sure.
And one thing I want to ask you, did you see The Last Black Man of San Francisco movie?
I did not.
please check that out because when I read your story, I thought about that movie. It was a
Oh
young
man.
black male and he was going through it, half homeless, and he was trying to find himself and he was an artist. And I looked at San Francisco and he was getting it, he was around these this gang people and he was trying to get his life right. He's kind of famous now. I forgot his name, the guy that plays in it. But when you see it, you'll know who I'm talking about. But yeah, check that movie out because it he gets to do his art in his own way, and I think that's amazing and it's a good story.
Cool. I
Um,
definitely looked that up for sure.
so what are some ways you find peace? But
So
probably meditation.
yeah, that's definitely one way. I like to go places that are inspiring and beautiful. So like I care a lot about aesthetics in my life, in general. So like I want to be around like flowers, and I want to be around art, and I want to be around music, and I want to go to restaurants where like the vibe is nice, and I want to go to grocery stores that make me feel good. And it's like those are choices I make for myself because I've as a person that's trying to constantly pump myself with inspiration and like be able to absorb good vibes and good stuff from around me. I want to put myself in like places where I feel peaceful and I feel peace and serenity and tranquil, and like I can just look out, like I don't have any friends that are like, "Hey, let's go to the botanical gardens this weekend." Everyone will invite you to the bar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they do.
But like, no
They
one's like,
do.
"We should go to the art gallery and then go to the botanical gardens and to, like take pictures and like at the butterfly exhibit and like wear your fly stuff." And like, no one does that. Like,
Yeah,
I don't.
that's what I want to do. I haven't met anyone like that in my age range. I would like
Yeah,
to. I just haven't. I mean, if you're in Vegas, I'll go to the art gallery with you. But where
right.
you look, you're in San Francisco.
I'm in Ohio.
Oh, in
Yeah, funny.
Ohio, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I like art galleries. I like stuff like that. And I don't mean nobody to want to do that. I like bookstores. I like going to sit in the bookstore and just going over a book and discussing it. It could be Audible book too, because I also subscribe to Audible. I like audiobooks too.
yeah.
But yeah, that's peaceful, man. That makes
And I
sense.
think and finding stuff that like I remembering what I liked to do when I was a kid. Like I was the
Yeah.
other day I was thinking I was like I used to love swimming. Like I used to
Mm.
love it. I learned how to swim from my stepmom and her family because they had a pool, and like it was completely different than my life in the city. You know what I mean? And so,
Wow.
but like now that I'm an adult, I'm like I don't even know the last time I went swimming not at like a pool at like a resort or something on vacation, just like swimming out
Wow.
free.
Yeah.
It's been so long. So like now I'm thinking like how do I start to incorporate things that really were fun for me as a kid back into my life? Because I feel like there's something about that. There's something to be noted about the things that really brought you joy when you were forming, in your formative years too. Like it's so weird. I work at a sports card store and I do like marketing operations for the company. It's a startup. Um, and I grew up playing Pokemon. I loved Pokemon cards. I
Oh,
played
I
Pokemon.
love
I had Pokemon cards on the bus and I was trading them. So it's so funny to me now. Like I'm still in an environment where like Pokemon cards are around. And so I think working there also made me think like, hey, what is it like if I bring some more stuff? Like I did play video games once in a while. I
Oh
did used to
yeah.
like, I mean, I did used to do stuff before I was like super busy and like trying to make it to wherever I'm trying to make it to. So like how do I
Yeah.
incorporate some of that back into my life? That's another way I try to keep my life peaceful as well.
Good idea. And scheduling is important in some ways because it does help you work towards something. That's what I've learned. That's why I started scheduling my days the best way I can.
Yeah.
What does your morning routine look like?
Yeah, so there's coffee for sure. There's definitely
Yes.
there's definitely coffee. Big coffee guy. I typically wake up, take my dog outside. I do a meditation that's usually like 20 to 30 minutes every morning, and that's like a non-negotiable typically. And then, I mean, I work at 9 to 5 every day,
Yeah.
so like I get up and go to work. And after work, I shut that down and I turn on all the other stuff I'm doing. So I'm checking my YouTube analytics for my video, and I'm working on my Spotify for artist page, and I'm checking my Amazon author central. I'm doing all this stuff, the hobbies, and like the things I want to turn into my full time life. You know what I mean? So
I love it.
the morning for me is mostly like starting out peaceful, and then like sometimes I turn up. Like this morning, I was listening to the Metro Boomin album. Just that's what I was listening to. It's just it was early. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I just felt like I felt like that. So there's times for me, it's like just catch the vibe. Like for me, I'm all about like get in the right spirit and energy and unapologetically be in that. So I try to be as positive, as fun, as like light, and like carefree as possible. I know there's times to be serious and not, but most of the time I'm joking around and like
Yeah,
without someone.
I'm a silly Willy myself, so I
Yeah.
can I
And I'm
can
a
relate
morning
to that.
person. I'm a morning person, so I'm already like on 12.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a good morning routine. Also, I wanted to know, well, I know you said you don't read a lot, but what's your favorite audiobooks right now?
That's a great question. I've been listening to podcasts, I'm gonna tell you.
Okay,
So
what's
I
your
could
favorite podcast right now? That's a good one.
my favorite podcast right now is the Cheat Code podcast, which is like a
Mm.
they're hip hop heads and people from the industry, Wendy Day and Ferrari Simmons and the other guy who I know his Instagram name is Rap Juggernaut. I don't know his actual name. But they're like people who have put artists on tour and indie artists and like show them the way. And
Oh,
I
wow.
you should definitely watch it. They have a YouTube channel and everything. But for me, I'm constantly trying to like when you're younger, you're like, I should just go to school for that. Like I could just go
Yeah.
back to school and like learn how to do that. But when you're older, you're like, how can I like you get to the hypotenuse? Like how can I cut across the field and like learn as much as
Yeah.
possible? And so for me, like I find podcasts and usually listen to people who like Steve Harvey, for instance. I listen to Steve Harvey's
Yeah,
podcast a
I
lot
like Steve.
because
Yeah.
they're 7 to 10 minutes and he gives you some quick like advice and guidance and a thought, a nugget of a gem for you to take home and consider. I like those kind of things too. So I try to listen to podcasts where I feel like I walk away with something, even if it's just like a concept or a website I didn't know about to check or like a new Instagram page I wasn't going to follow until they mentioned it. So those would be the two
Wow.
biggest ones I've listened to now, probably the Cheat Code podcast and the Steve Harvey, whatever that's the morning one that everyone listens to.
Nice. I
Daily
like
something,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I like Steve. I've listened to him a few times, a lot of times. He's been on Earn Your Leisure podcast. He's been
Yeah,
giving some
I listen
gems.
to
Him and Master P. I love it. Because those type people I want to be similar to, And so what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
I would say don't run away from home so fast, probably.
Mhm.
I was when I was 17, I was at the point where it's like I couldn't wait to do anything but get away from my house. Like I grew up in a single mother household. I lived with my mom, my aunt, my brother, and my grandma. And it was we did our best, obviously. Like I won't sit here and say I had a bad upbringing by any stretch of the imagination. I had a very supportive household. I think that I was like getting to the point where I started to see like there were other futures that I hadn't seen before once I started
Mm.
being around different people and like traveling and visiting colleges. And I was like, look, these people got these lake houses out here. They got, what I mean?
Wow.
They got
Yeah.
degrees and then another degree with a comma after that
Mhm.
degree. And then they got like,
Mhm.
who are these people? What are they doing? What does that mean? What's all that about? And for me, I
Yeah.
was so pulled in that direction because I just knew that like I wanted my life to be different. I had certain things like I didn't want to have a kid before I was X amount of years old because I was thinking about my mom having me when she was 16,
Mm.
getting pregnant when she was 16 and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So like I had all these like little things on my shoulder, these burdens on my shoulder, I guess I was carrying. Um, and it was really not until I got rid of those where I started to feel like, I can just move how I want to move and like start accomplishing things. Like you can't really accomplish stuff when you're carrying those burdens on your shoulders.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, because you got to work through your trauma and so you can make a better future for yourself. So I like that. And before we wrap it up, I just want to what was that question I wanted to ask you? What's a saying or quote that you go by?
Great one as well. I've been saying this Lauren Hill quote recently, which is "Let's not be mediocre in our greatness."
Ooh.
She said that in one of these YouTube videos I saw not that long ago, one of those shorts, those reels,
Yeah,
and just like saying that if we're gonna be great, let's like really try to be great. Just like
yeah.
let's really you it's like the kid that's like the best on the sports team and he's like he knows he's better than everybody else and like sometimes he kind of like plays down a little bit so that he or she plays down a little bit so that they don't have to seem like there's so much gap between
Oh,
them and
yeah.
everybody else. But I
Mhm.
feel like the point of that quote is to say like that gap is not your concern. Your
It's
concern is your concern is the gap between like where you are and like what's possible up there.
mhm.
So for me that's a quote I live by, just like trying to make sure that I'm putting out my best stuff. I'm pushing myself. I'm not just trying to churn out things or I'm not trying to bamboozle people. Like I'm really trying to put out whatever the best of whatever's coming out of me, in whatever
I
form that
love
is.
it.
I'm trying to really get. I wrote a poem called Inside Outside that I performed at my book launch party, and it was about getting what's inside outside. Like I need to get what's inside outside because that's just non-negotiable. It's just that's the key to freedom for me, is getting that stuff out. That's when I feel happy. That's when I feel calm and serene and peaceful, is when I feel like I've emptied myself and poured. You know, you hear all these artists, I poured my soul and my heart into this. I poured my
Mhm.
everything into this. That's a real feeling if you're really doing that. It
Oh
sounds
man,
cute. It
yes.
sounds cute to say, but it's like a real feeling you get when you're
You
like,
really do.
I really tried hard, and like,
Hmm.
and I really got something that I like. And so when you like can see and say both those things, it's like you kind of get addicted to that feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is addictive.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want that dopamine hit because
Right.
that's
I'm
how
trying
it
to.
feels when I'm doing art. It's like, one second, because
Yeah.
I got a new thing I'm working on called Whiskey, and it's gonna be pretty crazy. And it's my first rock meets soul type
Nice.
track. And I'm like, I'm pushing the boundaries, and people will be like, wait a minute, I thought you was just soul. And no, I do all types of things. I just got my studio late in life.
Right.
So now
Yeah.
I'm like about to just start. So,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to an artist, like whether it's a singer, author, like what advice can you give them for someone that has fear in their heart, that's scared?
I would say let someone else tell you no, instead of yourself. I feel like a lot of times we tell ourselves no even before we've even like submitted to the opportunity, or, sent someone the song, or we've tried to apply for the fellowship, or we tried to get the thing. We're already telling ourselves reasons why we're not qualified. So for me, it's like if you're confident in what you're doing, then that's just the first step. The second step is getting into the hands and ears, or whatever, the rooms of people who like can help expand your reach and get your product or your thought or your idea or your thing, whatever it is, into like the right places. So I would say just like don't be your biggest critic. We most of us are that, and just like don't be. Just like
Yeah.
don't you should be your biggest cheerleader. Who else is gonna, if you're approaching somebody and you're coming with the energy that you already think that they're not gonna want it because my Instagram followers ain't up, and my this and my that, or we
Yeah.
didn't have the 4K camera to shoot the video with. So like
Hmm.
whatever, all those things that you have in your mind, like those are your problems. Those are your
Yeah.
insecurities. And that those don't have to carry, like you just wrap them up in a nice little bow and hand them to whoever you're asking to give you money or to support you or whatever. And like,
Yep.
why would they, So for me, it's like approaching people with a confidence and like a certainty, knowing that like, I'm, I'm happy with this. And I believe that you could do
Yep.
stuff with this, and you should like, and like, I'm not going to tell myself no before you tell me no.
Yes, confidence is, I learned, the biggest thing in entertainment. I remember when I was young and I was talking to a music exec at 23, and he said, you're not confident enough to go to the labels. And it probably saved me because I really, but I understood contracts back then and I can read well. So I would have, I'm not taking a bad deal. But he said that confidence begets talent. And I said, okay, because it just, you could be a mediocre artist to, I guess, some people, but then you know, um, your confidence just makes you just so much better, like, because you're just
Yeah.
confident. So even though this person may sing better, rap better to some people, I don't know, your confidence is going to pull people in. So yeah, that's good advice. I like that.
I don't know if you
And
listen to SZA. Do you listen to SZA?
SZA, oh yeah, I love SZA.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
her
like
her
her.
new album just came out yesterday, and I was listening to it yesterday and today. But it's just like I was listening to some of the songs. Like there's certain people who I'm like they are phenomenal songwriters. Like doesn't matter.
Man,
I'm listening to it regardless because the songwriting abilities are like it's like her. I'm listening to all of hers music, all of it.
yeah, yeah, her and SZA are
You know,
amazing.
but I was like, you have to imagine the confidence you feel to say that stuff and really mean that stuff. Like
Facts.
you have to really, it's one thing to be able to like I could put these words together and make it sound like this, but it's another thing to be like, no, like I'm saying this and like walking around like that's how I really feel. And I just like I
Hmm.
love that. I've always loved that
Yeah.
about everything. About successful people, about great people. I've always just loved that like you can walk in there and exude that thing because you've put it in the world already. You've already seen it. Like
Yes.
you already see it yourself. So it's like who else is waiting? But like you're not waiting on you. They're catching
Hmm.
up. You know what I mean?
They're
Everyone else is
catching
catching
up.
up. Yeah, they're
That's what
catching
Will
up.
Smith said. He said, I already knew I was a star. I'm just waiting for y'all to see it.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that quote. I always remember that since I was young when he said that because it just makes so much sense. So we're about to wrap this up. I had so much fun chatting with you, and I definitely want to probably have a part two for any album you have coming up or your second book. Where could people find you at? Subscribe and follow you.
For sure. So my website is damianwhitewrites.com. It's DAMIAN. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Damian K White. Those are my handles. So
Yay, please support this brother, man. He's amazing. I like his energy. I can feel his energy through the freaking computer. And I wish he was in Vegas so I could go look at some paintings with him, but
right,
maybe one day.
for sure.
But yes, I want to thank you for being on here, and I want to thank all my audience for listening to me. Please subscribe, share, and comment if you like what I'm doing, and peace.